Yo, it's the referee, and you know what that means? It must be Friday. It's time for another edition of This Week in the XFL. And I'll tell you, it's been a big week. We've been waiting for that eighth coach. We've been waiting for that announcement. And not only did we get the coach of XFL Houston, we got the president too. So we're going to start with my man, Brian Michael Cooper, and let's take a look and see what he has to bring to the table. Now, I'll tell you this, he's pretty impressive. He has a lot of smaller league experience beyond being a lawyer. He had worked cases with the NFL in the past, so he has some experience there. But his most recent experience, he was part of the Rio Grande Valley Vipers G League team, which just recently won the championship. So bring that good luck to Houston. I'm all about it. Sign us up. Now the big news, right? So we learned the name of the coach. We learned who it's going to be. We know when the press conference is going to take place. So we'll start with that. So May 20th, next Monday, I believe 11:30 a.m. Central at TDECU Stadium, right here at the home of XFL 2K, Houston, Texas, we are going to learn that June Jones is the next head coach, the eighth and final coach, the first head coach of XFL Houston. So if you don't know who June Jones is, he's all about the run and shoot offense. I think it's awesome. I think he's a great pick. So he's coming from the CFL. He was most recently coaching for the Tiger Cats. And from what I understand, he was demoted to, I believe, offensive coordinator. But I think that's probably one of the main reasons he left. He said, look, if you're not going to respect me and my coaching style, I'm just going to leave. I'll get a better job in the XFL. And I think the CFL's worried, or at least they're starting to worry about coaches leaving, because now we've seen a lot of them, right? So Marc Trestman has CFL South already building up down in Tampa. Could we see the same here in Houston? I don't know. Time will tell. This man is no stranger to the city of Houston, right? So he was a wide receiver coach for the Gamblers in the USFL and a QB coach for the Houston Oilers in the NFL, clearly, right? And now they're the Tennessee Titans, and boo-hoo, get out of here with that garbage. Like I said, he champions that run and shoot offense. He has an overall college record of 112-94, NFL record of 22-36, and CFL 8-8. Not the greatest numbers, but again, the XFL, this is a new league. This is a whole new rule set. This is a different type of play, even different types of players. So, you know what? I think he's going to do good here. And you know what? Not to mention, he made Hawaii a good college football team. In fact, he's the winningest coach in Hawaii football history. So I welcome that. I want him to wear those sweet Hawaiian shirts on the sidelines. Sign us up. So every week it seems like we find out some more news about the AAF. But finally, we have some good news. Now, it's not necessarily about the AAF, but we have our first set of hires from the AAF. Some folks coming from executive roles from the Alliance to the XFL. So first, we're going to start with Chris Thompson. He's the former head coach of the Albany Empire, and most recently, he was director of football operations for the Atlanta Legends. Like I said, I know that team was a fan favorite. They may not have did the greatest in the in the AAF, but they were a fan favorite. So it looks like he's taking an executive role with XFL New York. It doesn't say what the role is yet, but that's our first ex-AAF hire there, right? And to me, that's some big news. Now, the second one is a little bit bigger of a name and a great fit for the city that he's going to. So we have Daryl Johnson is joining the XFL Dallas franchise as the director of player personnel, right? So Daryl Johnson was a former second round pick for the Dallas Cowboys, right? So another guy, no stranger to the city of Dallas. Moose, if you're a Cowboys fan. I'm not, but I know that is his nickname, right? I think that's a great pick. right? And like I mentioned, he had just recently come from the AAF. Most recently, he was the general manager of the San Antonio Commanders. So this is a great move. We're starting to see some folks from the AAF come over to the XFL. And I think this is probably the beginning of many more. Just like we're starting to see a lot of these CFL guys come down to the XFL or come up to the XFL, right? We don't know. The XFL is not even started yet. And I think we're starting to see that this 2020 iteration is much more professional than the last time around. We are getting the right people in the right places, people that people will know, household names in big TV markets, on big TV stations. Sign me up all day and night. And so now that we know all 8 coaches, I figure we're going to do something a little fun here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to rank all the coaches from worst to first. So I'm going to start at the bottom and move my way to the top. I think I have my mind made up, but I might shoot a little bit during this. I might switch a couple things around. But before I get started, I challenge everybody to do the same. So I know this is the XFL podcast is going to be doing a ranking next week, which you'll be able to find on this channel, Anchor, all of the different podcast providers. And that should happen probably about mid to late next week. And I'm not sure if he's going to wrap it into his podcast about June Jones and the press conference, but I do know it's coming next week. But I challenge everybody else as well. Leave your rankings down in the description. Join our Discord. The link's down in the description there as well. I guess you wouldn't want to leave your rankings in the description, but leave them in the comments. Check out that Discord in the description. Tell me why my ranking is good, bad, or indifferent, and I want to hear your opinions. Like I said, the Discord is a fun place for like-minded XFL fans to get together and get signed up. So you know what? Let's not waste any time here. So we'll just go right down the list here. I have these in no particular order on the right. This is just the order that I threw them together in. So we have Bob Stoops in XFL Dallas, June Jones in XFL Houston, Kevin Gilbride for XFL New York, Jonathan Hayes for XFL St. Louis, Winston Moss for XFL Los Angeles, Tampa Bay, Jim Zorn for XFL Seattle, and last but not least, put a little pep in your step from my man, Pep Hamilton from XFL TC. So here's what we're going to do. Like I said, I'm going to go from worst to first in just my opinion on these coaches. There's not really any scientific method that I'm using. I'm not going by overall records. It is a little bit of personality. There's a little bit fit for the city and a little bit of experience, I guess, is probably the best way to do it. And maybe, I guess, how much excitement I think they're bringing to the XFL here. So before I even get started with all this, I do want to preface this and say, I like all of these coaches. I think all of these dudes are solid picks. They have a good mix. The XFL is a good mix of people from college, from CFL, former NFL, and even just different positions, right? So not necessarily former head coaches, but you look at Jonathan Hayes, for instance. He was a tight ends coach, or a Pep Hamilton, things like that, right? So I think we have a great mix, and I think a lot of the people fit where they fall into place, and regionally, a lot of them make sense. So I guess my first pick, I guess for the number 8 slot, and honestly, I like him. I really do. And I think he's a great fit for the city he's in. But, I'm going to have to go with Pep Hamilton here. And I don't know really what it is. I guess it's just when I look at the other guys on the board here, he just doesn't bring as much excitement to me, right? He does have a past with Andrew Luck, right? And I'm assuming maybe that's partially how he got his foot in the door with his father, Oliver Luck, to maybe talk about a position here. So it's not like he hasn't done anything in his career. He's built up big quarterbacks like an Andrew Luck. He's local to the DC area, and I think he's going to be great for the community. But again, just looking at the list of guys here, I don't know. There's a couple that I think fit above the list, and I bet you already there's people that are shocked at this list. So this is why, again, I challenge everybody to leave your rankings down in the comments below. So, looking at the rest of this list here, and this one I've debated. Honestly, I was going to put him at number 2, funny enough, but now he's fallen down the rankings. And I'm going to have to say that's my man here, Jonathan Hayes. So, and again, it's not so much that he's not going to be good. In fact, I think he might be one of the best coaches in the league, if anything, just because he doesn't have that head coaching experience. And this goes for both him and Pep Hamilton. I think that they might be the guys that are going to experiment a little bit more. But at the same time, that might hurt them, right? That might get them into a situation where they're down by 2 and they go for that 3-point extra point conversion and then end up losing rather than tying the game, right? These are the situations I could see them falling into. Now, again, I really like Jonathan Hayes. I think he's a solid pick for St. Louis. I know a lot of people were disappointed with that pick, but I think it's going to be fun. Mainly in part is there's already that built-in rivalry with XFL Los Angeles, which Winston Moss brought up during his press conference, which was probably my favorite part of the Winston Moss press conference and probably one of my favorite parts of all of the press conferences in general. And quite honestly, he moved up in my list due to that. I like the attitude. He fits into LA. So sorry to divert there, but that's where I have Jonathan Hayes now. And like I said, I'm shooting from the hip a little bit on a couple of these things, but I'll tell you, a couple of guys have even moved up a little bit more, but I'm going to have to go with Jim Zorn at number 6. Now, this one may surprise people, it may not. But, I'll say he did not have the most spectacular NFL coaching career, and I think it's probably a good decision that they didn't put him in the DC area. But he is important to Seattle, and again, I think he's a great pick for the city of Seattle. And there's a couple reasons why, right? He was, I believe he was the 3rd player ever picked for the Seahawks. He played for them for at least 6 years, 8 seasons. He played there for 8 seasons as a quarterback. He's had an 11 years he played in the NFL for the Seahawks, the Packers, the Buccaneers. He also had a season in the CFL for the Blue Bombers. He was the Seahawks quarterback coach from 01 to 07. And like I mentioned, he was also the Redskins head coach, where he was promoted to head coach from quarterback coach with a 12-20 record. He has an overall record of 136 and 126. So not horrible. It's over 500. But I don't know. You can Google it. Just look up Jim Zorn's greatest play. And I believe he used it twice, maybe 3 times in one game. That's maybe why he's so much further down this list. Now, as we move up this list, it's getting a little bit more difficult, right? There's probably some names on this list that people are like, why are they still there? Or how are they this high, right? So I'm going to look at, let's see. So we're at number 5, 4 and 5, about middle of the road here. I'm going to go, man, there's probably some people wondering what is going on with this list. I'm going with Marc Trestman on this one. So, again, very similar to Jim Zorn. Not the greatest NFL coaching career, but the reason he's moved up, man, I might even move him up higher. But we may change this list as we go through, too. This may evolve. People may switch as we get further down the line. Yeah, you know what? No. Okay, we're going to start here. So, again, this may change. So, Marc Trestman, again, not the greatest NFL record, 13-19 when he was coaching for the Bears. Had a little bit better luck in the CFL. He has a 60-40 overall record with 3 Grey Cup champions, 2 of which were back-to-back. The only coach to have back-to-back Grey Cup victories with the Argonauts. So, sign him up there. And I think we might see very similar play to what we had in the what we have in the CFL here in the XFL. So I think he is going to fit in good. Now, this is one of the reasons he may move up on my list here. And actually, you know what? We're going to move him to number 4. We're going to move him to number 4. And here's the reason why. So probably one of the main reasons that he's moved up here is he's probably one of the only, if not only, he is the only XFL coach so far to build up as much of his staff, if not all of it. Maybe we just haven't heard the names yet. So he is basically building a CFL South down in Tampa there. So he's brought in Jerry Glanville, which I thought he may have ended up in Houston, and it's unfortunate because I bet him and June Jones would have a heck of a time out here. But he also brought the Red Blacks offensive coordinator, Jamie Elizondo, right? And that was a little controversial. I think there was some angry people, at least in the CFL, that happened. And then most recently, he's brought in William Fields, who was a back-end coach for the Tiger Cats, right? So he's already building his little staff there. It really looks like he knows the direction he wants to go in. So that's why he's moved up here. So let's take a look here at the rest of the crew. Now this one, I got to do it. This one was going to be higher up on my list, but we're going to move Winston Moss. You're going to take number 5. Now I really like Winston Moss. Now I will say he probably had the shortest press conference of all the coaches. He was one of those guys, again, that I don't think a lot of people expected. But there were some things I really liked about his press conference. And like I said, it was his attitude. Him calling out the St. Louis coach, creating that rivalry that we all kind of wanted. That is awesome, right? So, again, he didn't have as much of a career as some of these other guys. But he did. He won in 1983 championships with the Hurricanes. He was a linebacker for 11 seasons in the NFL. He played for 155 games, 768 tackles, and 20 and a half sacks for the Seahawks, Raiders, and Bucks collectively, right? So he's coached for over 2 decades, starting in 97 when he retired. He spent 13 years with the Packers, where he was recently let go, right? So he to me, this is a really good pick. So he's coached the Packers to a Super Bowl victory, Super Bowl 45. He had some not so great things to say about Aaron Rodgers. But you know what? I look at that as an opportunity for us and him to prove everybody wrong. This dude could make some waves. And I think he's going to be higher up on this list if we're doing the ranking next year. Another thing to look at, and this is something that Tron Hawkins brought up on This Is the XFL podcast, is he is the only defensive based coach on this list, right? Everybody else is an offensive coach. This is a defensive coach. And I generally say the same, right? Defense is the best offense, right? So when we come to the end of the season, and it might be St. Louis and LA or St. Louis and any of these offensive teams, if he can build up a good defense out there, if he can pick those guys, as we've seen with the Broncos winning a Super Bowl with a broken quarterback and a crap Brock Osweiler, right? Defense is the best offense. Defense can win you games. So I think, again, when we look at this list, maybe we'll do another ranking at the end of the season. And Winston Moss might be much higher on this list. So this is, again, probably my original top 3 that's changed a million times. I don't think Gilbride was in there initially. It's bounced around a few times. And you know what? As much as I hate to do it, we're going to go with our latest coach for number 3, my hometown, Houston, June Jones. June Jones, like I said, I'm excited to have June Jones here in XFL Houston. I'm all about that run and shoot offense. I want to see a lot of points. I want to see a lot of action. I want less stall, more ball. And I think we're going to get that with June Jones. Like I mentioned earlier, he's the winningest coach in Hawaii football history. He took a college that nobody ever thinks of as being good and took them to the championship, right? Not the most impressive NFL record, but I think this is the kind of guy that we need to see here. And like I said, as far as ties to the city, this guy is no stranger. He worked for both the Gamblers and the Oilers back in their heyday. So you know what? Let's make it a third time's the charm. Let's make it happen, June Jones. I'm excited to make this happen. Now we're down to our last two, Bob Stoops, Kevin Gilbride. And there's probably a lot of people looking at this video wondering, how is Kevin Gilbride so high on the list? Maybe even some folks thinking that about Bob Stoops as well. So before we waste any more time, we're going to go, and Kevin Gilbride's going to be our number 2. Now, like I said, this may be surprising for a lot of folks, but to me, it's simple. He made Eli Manning a good quarterback. And not only once, but twice did he take that team, the Giants, to the Super Bowl and beat the Patriots. And people don't remember this. That first time that they beat the Patriots, people thought there was no way in hell that the Giants were going to take this game. The Patriots at that time were undefeated. They went 16-0 for the season. They had won all the playoff games, clearly, right, if they're in the Super Bowl. And the only team that could take them down was Baby Manning and Kevin Gilbride and his offense and the defense of that team, right? So that moved Gilbride way high onto this list because there's not many teams that can beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, let alone beat the Patriots ever, right? So that is an accomplishment. And to me, again, the XFL, a lot of the players that we're going to be seeing in this league are going to be coming out of college or maybe are trying to get back in the NFL. And when I look at a Kevin Gilbride, that is a guy that can impart wisdom, teach new tactics, give new skills, give them the insight to become a better player. So honestly, I think that's why he's made it so far on our list, right? We need coaches that not only have experience, that not only know the game, right, but can help build talent, right? Because there's a lot of these guys, I think probably the biggest names that are ever going to come out of the XFL are going to be people that we've never heard of before the XFL. Sure, there's going to be the Manziels. There's going to be some of the folks from the AAF, right? But there's also going to be guys that we've never heard of before that are going to be the A-plus players, the number one go-to guy, the best wide receivers, guys that will eventually jump to the NFL or maybe decide to stay in the XFL. We don't know where this league is going. 5 years from now, we might look back at this time and laugh when we thought maybe the XFL wasn't going to be a viable league. But right now, that's where we're looking at. We need coaches that are going to help build players, and I think he's going to do that, right? So he has over 40 years of coaching experience in college and pro. That's huge. That's big stuff. That is knowledge that you can't get from reading a book, right? 2 seasons as an NFL coach. And like I said, one of the biggest things he embraces the fast style of play. And that's what the XFL ultimately is going to be all about. And until he gets to Winston Moss's team, I think he might be able to accomplish that. So, we went through 8 through number 2. And I don't think there should be anybody that is going to be surprised at the number 1 pick. He was the first coach announced for the XFL, and that is the coach of XFL Dallas. Big game Bob Stoops, right? And I believe there's a reason he was the first coach named, because he's probably the biggest name on this list, probably the most accomplished person on this list. He is the man. And one of the greatest things that I like about Bob Stoops is, one of the things I was just talking about Gilbride. He knows how to take players and mold them, make them into better players. In fact, he's taken players that have maybe had bad past and worked with them and made them in not just better players, but better people. And this is something that Tron had brought up on the XFL podcast as well. The XFL is not only about the quality of plays, but the quality of players. And I think he's going to be able to help a lot of young athletes get to the potential that they've been trying to for years, right? So let's run down some of his accomplishments. 34 years of coaching experience. As we know, he's coached the Oklahoma Sooners for 18 years and led them to a championship. He has 10 Big 12 titles, 10 double digits, right? If he had one more, he'd need a third hand. He has 19 Coach of the Year awards, 8 at the national level, fastest coach to 100 wins, the most winningest coach in college football. That's huge. That's huge. Like I mentioned, he's a national champion, fastest coach to 100 wins, and the most winningest coach in college football. And that, my friends, is why Big Game Bob sits ahead of the top. He is number one. And we may see XFL Dallas win a championship. I think he's going to have a record very similar to the Orlando Apollos. So, I don't know. Here's what I want everyone to do. Like I said, I made the challenge earlier. If you want to make your own video, tag yourself in the comments, or, just put your list down in the comments, or like I mentioned, join our Discord and tell me why my list is right or wrong, and just have a conversation with some other like-minded XFL fans. But hey, before I let you go, if you didn't know, we're also on Facebook and Twitter. Give us a follow at XFL2KCom. No dot, still trying to get that premium domain. And since we're on YouTube, make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to see when we're dropping new videos. Some are going to be live and some are going to be pre-recorded just like this one. So until next time, sign you up.
I've been watching you all night, 'cause everything about you, it's so right.